The Motor Dream podcast is recorded on Camaragal land of the Eora Nation. It always was and always will be the lands of the First Nations of Australia.
This is the Motor Dream podcast.
Hello there and welcome to episode 44 of the Motor Dream podcast. I'm Connor McNally and thank you for joining me once again on the show where we can dream just a little about what our dream garage would be if money was no issue. You know, I always enjoy chatting with my guests because I get to learn about why they love cars and motoring. In some instances, they may like bikes more than cars, and that's just as exciting. But I also love talking to people who display plenty of charm and charisma and are not afraid to not take life too seriously. This edition of the podcast certainly epitomises all of the above with my guest. A deep passion for motoring, a healthy obsession with cars and motorsport, and being able to play the fool and make people laugh and smile. I'll tell you who my guest is in just a moment, but first, here's a quick reminder of what this show is all about. I tell my guests that one day they wake up to discover that they've received a text telling them they need to check their bank balance. They then open up their bank app and they suddenly discover that they're instant billionaires. As soon as they discover their newfound fortune, they get an email from this mystery benefactor that tells them that they can spend anything that they like and they can buy any car, bike or machine that they want. There is a catch though. They are only allowed 3 cars, bikes or machines in their dream garage. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But trust me, as my previous guests have told me, it is very difficult to decide what they like to have in their dream garage. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast itself wherever you listen to your podcast, and be sure to check out the entire episode library if you've not yet done so. Also, be sure to follow us on our socials, which we'll tell you more about at the end of the show. Now, we all know that motor racing always has and continues to be the pursuit of technical excellence. From Formula One, supercars, sports car racing and even drag racing, all car and bike manufacturers, tuning houses and race teams all strive to find that extra millisecond to beat their opposition. But motor racing is more than just technical brilliance. The sport is made up of the people and personalities that make the sport the spectacle that it is. You have your consummate professionals and those that just want to race and don't like to be the centre of attention. But then you have the personalities who are larger than life. Competitors who are as such on the racetrack, but bring a jovial, likeable attitude off the track that is a hit with the fans. In Australia, we certainly have plenty of those. Mark Larkham, Daniel Ricciardo and Jack Miller are those personalities who certainly fall in that category. In Aussie racing cars, you have a mix of young drivers who are ready to make their mark in the sport, alongside some experienced hands who are ready to take it up to the youthful opposition. And then you have Cody McKay, a driver from the New South Wales Hunter Valley who displays a mullet that even Valtteri Bottas would be envious of. McKay is one of the most popular personalities in the Battery World Aussie Racing Cars Super Series, which is a part of the support bill for the Repco Supercars Championship. Since joining the series in 2019, Cody has been consistent in his race results, and in 2025, he finished the series in 7th overall, with a season's best of 5th for the round at the Bend Motorsport Park. Since starting out in karts as a 16-year-old at the Newcastle Kart Racing Club and learning his trade in a variety of classes, McKay has since applied his craft in speedway, production car racing, and even the Variety Club Bash in an EH Holden that he helped prepare with his dad, who's also a mechanic. He grew up around cars his entire life, and he's turned his passion into a career choice, becoming a mechanic in his own right, and has since established his own mechanical business, Radical Mechanical, in the heart of Newcastle. In 2026, Cody takes the next step in his racing career, branching out into team ownership with Chicane Motorsports, and will contest the entire Aussie racing cars season with his newly created team. His passion for motoring and motorsport extends to his impressive collection of posters and memorabilia that he's either bought or collected over the years. And his workshop office is littered with so many cool posters that he's framed as well, such is his passion for the sport itself. So when I approached him to appear on the podcast via his team co-owner and media manager Megan Coleman, he was more than excited to talk about his love for cars, and it's very clear in our extended interview how much it means to him. There's some very funny anecdotes within our chat, and his dream garage is very retro, very nostalgic, and more importantly, features some very iconic machinery. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Aussie racing cars fan favourite Cody McKay to the Motor Dream podcast. The man with the best mullet in Australian motorsport, Cody McKay, welcome to the Motor Dream podcast. It is so good to have you on from your workshop up in Newcastle.
Well, thank you very much. I've been pretty excited to jump on this podcast. And I can assure you, when he says mullet, he's not talking about fish. He's talking about this disgusting thing that I've got on the back of my head, also referred to as a mud flap. I think it's had a few feral nicknames in its time. But, geez, we were just talking about cutting it off. And here I am going, I should grow it longer.
Yeah, to the detriment of your marriage, I reckon. But no, I'm joking when I say that. I'm sure your wife supports you in your endeavours, especially when it comes to motorsport. She definitely supports your motorsport efforts and your efforts in business as a mechanic. I mean, you're a jack of all trades. You're a media personality, social media sensation, race car driver, team owner now in the Aussie Racing Cars series. There's so much going on in your life.
I know. It's one thing that you kind of sit there sometimes and you go, I need a break. And then luckily we've just had the birth of our firstborn. So we're pretty excited about that. But as you know, when you have kids, there's a lot of sitting around and waiting. And I reckon I was going crazy, not doing stuff. I nearly had the dishwasher machine in parts waiting for him to cry, to do something. So whilst, it's busy, I love it. I love being as busy as I can. I want to be working every single day. I want my mind going 100 miles an hour. So I just cram it full of stuff until I explode.
Absolutely. And you're a very busy man, like I said. You're running Radical Mechanical up in Newcastle. You've got your new race team that you've just started up, which, of course, is Chicane Motorsports, which you've formed with Megan Coleman, who gracefully accepted the request to interview you, which was very kind. Thank you, Megan. Brad East and Andrew Bender have been involved as well. They bring PR, sponsorship, finance and business together along with yourself, with your mechanical side of things, plus being in business. And it's going to be a brand new year, a year of learning, and also, I guess, going to try and be competitive at the top end of Aussie racing cars, because Aussie racing cars is definitely one of the most popular categories in the supercar support bill, and very much one of the most closely competitive.
Exactly right. It's one thing, I've been a part of Aussie racing cars since about 2018, 2019, when we had our first race meeting then. And it's really formed into something that I'm absolutely addicted to, the category, the cars and everything. I've driven a lot of things over my time and nothing comes close to what these Aussie cars are like. We've explored other areas and other categories. And when we really got together, we sat down and we said, what do we want to do when we were forming Chicane Motorsport? And we all said that we just love the Aussie cars. The bang for the buck is just undeniable for what you get out of it. The support category bills that we're racing at for a quarter of the price of what you'd even pay in a Super 2 drive, and you get a car that you have to wrestle and you have to drive, you can't be disguised in power steering and ABS and traction control type stuff. If you can't drive it, you're out. So because they deliver so much for the bang for the buck, it's just a no-brainer for us.
Absolutely. You've got a 7-round calendar for this year's championship, starting at Bathurst on the Easter long weekend, of course, part of the Bathurst 6-hour. It must feel a bit weird to be starting your season at Bathurst, whereas you would normally turn up around the Bathurst 1000 during the year, and it's one of the biggest weekends in Australian motorsport where you've got so many eyes watching. But I get the feeling that although it's the start of the year for you, it's going to be a little bit more relaxed because it is the Bathurst 6-hour. It's a more chilled environment, so not too much pressure compared to a 1000 weekend.
Yes and no. It's very interesting saying that. And when we first saw the calendar that came out, and I've raced in the Bathurst 6-hour many times and had great success there, so we know the event back to front. But when we saw the calendar came out, it was kind of like this, oh, really? Is that where we're starting? You can't be serious. Like, we want the bigger events. But then when we started to cut down the guts of what are the big events for the start of the year, and other than Eastern Creek or Sydney Motorsport Park, however old you are, that for round one of the V8 supercars, there is no support category build to be on until Tasmania, really. So the V8 supercars go to Sydney Motorsport Park for round one. Then they jet set off to New Zealand for their double rounds, or I believe they do Albert Park.
They do Albert Park beforehand, yeah.
Exactly. I'm glad you're up to it, because I kind of stay out of what the supercars are doing. But that's 3 rounds at the start of the year that no support category can be on, unless you're in New Zealand or unless you're the Porsche Carrera Cup in that sense. So when we kind of analyse it, we've gone, well, fair enough, we miss out on Eastern Creek. That's a shame. That's a 50-50 event. Bathurst 6 Hour is probably a good way to start, because the Bathurst 6 Hour is really growing its own legs. It's come a long way. We're starting to see a lot of spirit. And now with the other categories that are coming into it, Trans Am and TA2 and all that type of stuff, they're really starting to pack it up with really, really good support cars.
I agree with that, yeah.
So it's not like how it was before, where it'd be the Bathurst 6 Hour and 60 XL smashing into each other before turn 2 and they finish under yellow.
Now, be nice, be nice.
I love an XL, and I really support the category. I just want them to get a full lap of racing in. That's all I really go with.
I think there's a few XL racers that agree with you with that sentiment as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So we're not disappointed by the start of the Bathurst 6 Hour. These cars are going to be really interesting with the new performance and the motor upgrades. What speeds are we going to achieve, and what lap times are we going to do as well? It's a nice bit of relaxing way to start, which isn't massive commitments in a sense. But straight after that, we get straight onto the Supercars bill again. We're off with Tasmania, which is another one of my favourite events. So I think we're ultimately, with the 6 rounds that have been announced, with the 7th to be announced, we're pretty happy with what we get.
Absolutely. The calendar after Bathurst sees you, as you mentioned, Symmons Plains at Tasmania. It's on the 22nd to 24th of May. Then it's up to Townsville, which is on the street circuit there for the I think it's the 400 or 500, whatever they now call it these days. Yeah. On the 10th and 12th of July. Great weather time to be up there in Townsville. You stay in Queensland for the Queensland Raceway in mid-August, and then it's back to the Bend for the 500 in mid-September, then to the Gold Coast, and then, as you mentioned, it'll be a final round date to be confirmed. Although we may see you maybe on the ASBK support bill. We've seen the Aussie racing cars support the ASBK, the Australian Superbike calendar in the past. So I guess it's a nice fit, because Aussie racing cars run motorbike engines, ASBK, motorbike category. It just seems like a perfect synergy there.
Yeah, exactly. So with the previous ownership under Tony Quinn, that was a popular way of getting us that 6th or 7th round as a filler. We might have only secured 5 or 6 rounds with the supercars. That was a way of getting us an extra round. So we had more racing than any other category. But with the push of Brett Thomas and TFH taking over the ownership, they have really pushed that they want every round on a supercars bill. As we know of how the start of the season unfolded, there wasn't enough, spots for us category to be onto. But, we are looking at probably 6 rounds. There is a rumor of what the last round will be. They're in talks at the moment. But a 5-round calendar works out well. So whilst I support the superbike stuff, I personally feel it was a little bit lost in translation. We'd have some rounds that we were celebrities at. It's like, for some reason, you go to Goulburn at one raceway and you'd be swamped with supporters. And then you go to other rounds and it'd be like a bit of a ghost town. So, we want to make sure that we've got really good, keen, fanatic followers now that love this category. We want to make sure it's easy enough for them to watch. Being a part of the Supercars bill allows that for us to do it.
I want to ask you about, firstly, the relationship with the TFH Hire group. They now obviously own the category. Their involvement in motorsport now has really grown in the last couple of years. TA2 and Trans Am, they've really put a lot of investment, not just in their own race team and the category, but they've support Todd Hazelwood as well. But now Aussie racing cars, what are the Thomas family like to be dealing with in terms of the motorsport side of things?
Well, I think the first time I met some of the Thomases was when we were banging doors into each other onto the racetracks. As usually happens with the racing. I believe I've got a really good relationship with them. They are, even before they own the category, we got along well, got along with Diesel and Brett and all the other guys, Josh Thomas as well. We're just like we are in the pits, a bit friendly. We can always talk to each other as well. And since they've taken over ownership, where Brett's taken over ownership, it's been good. So we've been able to have a lot of positive discussions, I would say, that we want allowed to have previously for the last 10 years, or get shut down or pushed away type stuff as well. He's shown his commitment for getting the field equal again. There was no doubt previously under old ownership, there was a lot of cheating, which we've now found out, which last year as well, as it's kind of come to an end, they've really worked hard in trying to stamp that out and making it as even as possible. Yes, there might have been some decisions that were questionable, but it's like a every month ongoing thing that they are working hard to make this category fantastic.
And we can see that on the racetrack. It's been absolutely tremendous. I want to ask you, the performance upgrades with the engine, or the changes with the engines, that obviously caused a bit of conjecture last year. A few teams decided to withdraw because they felt it was a bit unfair, but that's now all smoothed out and it's all back to happy families again. I mean, let's face it, it's not always happy families in motorsport, but at least it's now equal again to what it used to be. So what was the issue with that last year, and what are the upgrades?
I think the only way to talk about this is to be totally honest about it. You know, I've kind of said what I've had to say in the most political way possible, and without holding anyone accountable. There was no doubt that the cheating was right, and I've got to use the word cheating. There was people with illegal engines previously that were winning awards and taking them away, and it was pushed away. It came to light at that Tasmanian round because there was 6 guys that qualified a second or two quicker than the national champion. On a drag racing circuit, it was all horsepower. So it kind of came to a head, and instead of going, well, I'm going to bring everyone back, they've decided that they're going to open the regulations up. So there's only so much you can do to these engines, and it's a case of they've gone, well, it's going to be easier if we let you hit that top point, because unless you're porting and polishing the intakes and the exhaust and all that type of stuff, there's only so much air that can be sucked into the engine. So you could have 10 times bigger pistons than what we've got at the moment. It doesn't make a difference. It's how you kind of drive the thing and how much air you can get in and out of it. So from there, so we actually found, as much as we were quite disappointed that we had to invest a lot of capital back into it, there's no doubt that I would have spent plus 40, 50 grand on engines to get everything upgraded and to develop everyone as parts became available. We found that the people that were up the front all of a sudden started going backwards and to the back. And the people that were more deserving to be up the front stuck up the front. So whilst it was a painful way to do it, I probably reckon it was the wrong way of doing it. I believe, checking the engines and stuff like that would have been a lot better off. We've got the best result at the end of it. And I know that I can put my car on the grid and qualify in the top 5 or the top 10 quite easily, because I can bring the skill and the setup and all that type of stuff with it. So yes, controversial. There's no way about it. There is some bad taste in the mouth from there, but we have seen now that there's constant progress going forward. Every race meet, every month, they're looking at ways of fixing it. They're doing stuff that was never done before and that was pushed aside. So yes, no, it depends what side of the fence you're sitting on. I've just decided to, eat the sandwich and just kind of continue on. And look, to be honest, we're glad for it, because now we're finding that our engines are more reliable. Our speed is better. Our cars are better. Like, we've been able to go into these engines, which previously we technically couldn't, using the quotation marks, and find out what the weak points are and fix those weak points and go long distances on these engines and get high performance out of them as well. So yes, bad, good, and everything in between.
One question before we move on and talk about you in particular. Can you win the championship this year with a brand new team?
I believe so. We are putting all places into it, and the directors have come into it and said, we want results. We're not here for Cody McKay or driver number 2 or 3 to sit mid-pack to back of the pack. Can we do it? And we've got everything together now to say that, yes, we can do it. We've probably stumbled a little bit on the development because we were a bit behind, because we had to do pretty much 5 years worth of learning to catch up, which became with a few reliability concerns. But with what we've got investing and coming into it, if it comes down to we're not getting good results, I put the full blame on me and my driving. So, yeah, we are very keen for it.
Can't wait to see what happens in 2026 in the Aussie racing cars. I know there's a certain commentator that is invested in the Aussie racing cars as well that I know would like to have just as much success. I know Richard Crowe is champing at the bit to have his name at the top of the field, not as a driver, but as a team owner. Are you going to try and show him up a little bit?
Oh, you never know. It might be a good way of going. Krause's, he's good. He's like everyone. We're all mates around the paddock and stuff like that as well. We've all been helping and supporting each other as well. I get along well with the South Australian guys as well. So I'm not sure what their plans are for next year. Obviously, I can't comment on anything's going around because I just don't know. But look, we always hope to see them there for the next year. So, I suppose watch this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to about you. I love your biography. Like, you've been involved in motorsport for a very long time. You've got more than 15 years experience racing different categories. You've done Speedway, you did the Variety Bash, you've driven Legends cars, you've done Aussie racing cars, production cars, you've won your class at Bathurst as well in the 6 hour. Where did it all begin for you? Where did that love of cars and motorsport ignite the fuel inside Cody McKay?
Yeah, well, it literally came from my father. So whilst he's not, he loves his motorsport, he's not a race car driver. He was a hobby mechanic, in between. He's a watchmaker, if anything. So, we remember back in the day that, Dad would bring home this VP 5-litre Commodore, or he'd maybe have a red RX-7 one week or something like that. And, it's kind of like the poor family would. It was us fixing them, We had to learn to fix them because obviously you can't take it to a workshop all the time. So being around cars is where that love of cars come from, It's one thing that I just obsessed with, but literally obsessed with all of my life, from the little Hot Wheels cars and remote control cars and slot car sets to computer games to then getting your first car and then getting your first go-kart and then getting your race license and stuff. It was one thing that I always wanted to be a race car driver because we were so diehard V8 supercar supporters back in the day and motorsport and car supporters that there just wasn't any second option. I had to make this work, and it's literally what drove me. So, you can probably blame my family for that. Maybe I should send an invoice for all this.
I don't know if they want to pay you or maybe pay you in kind into the race team and be investors. But no, I'm sure they're pretty proud of what you've done since you got involved into motorsport, because if it wasn't for them and bringing cars home and working on the cars, you wouldn't be where you are now.
Yeah, exactly right. You've got to get your spark from somewhere. And there's always a story when you start to analyze and break down why you did something. It's usually quite a long path to go down. So, whilst I can sit here and I can be swearing at the workshop, I was previously working on my truck that I just bought and swearing about something like that. And then I kind of go, well, why did I want this truck? Oh, I've got to transport the race cars. Well, why do I want race cars? Oh, because I want to become a race car driver. And you start to go, oh, how did I get that? Oh, because I've become a mechanic. Oh, and all this stuff kind of leads down to, probably a conversation in passing with your parents one day. So, I'm still going to send that invoice, but I might get one back. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Right. Get back to me and we'll work something out.
Yeah.
I saw an old photo when I was doing my research. When you started out in karting, you wore a 20 or 30-year-old race suit and your kart was about 10, 15 years older than all the other karts. So this is like at the very, very beginning of your career. It must have been like you're a fish out of water going up against these, drivers and teams and much more modern machinery, wearing, much nicer races and the like. But you like to do things differently than anyone else. What made you decide to go down that route of wearing an older race suit, getting an older kart, learning your trade in that?
Yeah, well, it's probably I didn't really have a choice, to be honest with you. It's a case of I wanted to do that. I wanted to be go-kart racing. I wanted to make the step from there, but I didn't have mum and dad's money. They weren't putting anything into me. I think mum might have bought me a laser wheel liner set 1 year for my birthday. That's probably about as far as their support gone.
Yeah.
So the case was, when you're a poor automotive apprentice and you want to do something, you really have to find out all ways of doing it. It was a case of, I could wait and tick down the clock and maybe save up for that brand new go-kart with a brand new engine and race suit and trailer and stuff. How long that would take me as life got in the way would have been years. Or you can be on the track. It might not be the most competitive thing. It might be the biggest slug of an engine. It might be just like my old race suit that we pulled out of a cupboard where God knows where we got it from. I'm probably glad it didn't get set on fire once. It'd probably fall apart. My helmet never had any graphics or anything like that on it because I literally just could not afford it. Every single paycheck and every single bit went into, can I afford a new set of tires so I can at least qualify in the top 10?
Yeah.
Can I afford that engine rebuild? How long can I stretch this out? I was rebuilding the kart after every meeting, not so much as because I had to, there was more of a learning experience into it. But if I didn't do it myself, no one was doing it. So I just had to learn it, and I had to understand it and really crack back with the engineering of how a kart worked. I could hardly afford driver training. I had to go out there and learn from my own mistakes. So I believe that photo was from a state championship at Canberra where I think my wheel fell off at one stage. I went spinning down the street because I tried something new and it didn't work when I should have listened to the old guys. But I attached and drag myself onto anyone that I possibly could to suck in information because, they've been racing karts for 20, 30 years. And here I am as a young whippersnapper with an old clapped out kart trying to be competitive. It was good when everything came to me. I was actually quite competitive, but sometimes you just couldn't keep up with the horsepower and the money with other karts.
How long back are we talking about?
I would have at least got my first kart around when I was 18 or 19. It was a case of like I got my first paycheck from work or saved up my first month's paycheck and bought the cheapest clapper that I could get, and then slowly sold that and upgraded and stole parts from one and that. So
beg, borrow and steal, basically.
Yeah, exactly right. So there would have to be nearly 20 years in that, and there was probably around 10 years in the karting with every now and then someone, like you beg someone and they let you drive their clapped out production car in a shitbox round in one raceway or something like that, and it was pretty much just a test day. They wouldn't let you race it. They go, oh, how much money you got? I go, oh, I got nothing. They go, no worries. Well, thanks for your time. See you later type stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of that. I had to do it the hard way.
And when did you get into production cars? Was that step up from karting to get into production cars?
Yeah, so production cars probably would have been, I think, probably around 10 to 12 years ago. And, it's even from, the first real production car opportunity came from Trevor at Race Academy International because he ran a very similar event to what was that, I forget the name, but it was that thing where you could go in and try out, and if you did well, you could win like a V8 supercar driver.
It was like that chance of a lifetime.
Yeah, that type of stuff. So it was set up like that. So I started looking around because there was only, I could afford to do a little bit of maybe deputy 4-hour racing at Marul and like that type of stuff where someone would have a $3,000 car and you'd smash that around and think you're the next Michael Schumacher. But it was a case of I was looking at competitions just like those Race of a Lifetime and all that type of stuff. And this one came up with Trevor's Race Academy International. And I've gone, great, all right, how much is it? And I think it was like $1,500 or $2,000. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's so much money. But I was like, well, I at least get to drive the cars 3 or 4 times. So $500 a session, I get 4 laps. Okay, it's worth it, even for the yearly experience. And the first year I did it, I came second. And I was like, oh, geez, this is really good. I had a lot of people to challenge and I had a really good relationship and I got a couple of production car races at Eastern Creek out of it. And then the next year I went through and I ended up winning it. So I kind of went back for a second time because I was like, yep, I want to do it. There was a Bathurst 6-hour drive on the line, and it kind of stemmed from that. So it wasn't like a case of I going, oh yeah, I'm making enough money now. I've got a bit of sponsorship. I can jump in someone's production car. I still had to go the back door into doing that. Jeez, I've had a real spin on my memory now.
By back door, what do you mean?
Backdoor in a sense of it's very classical for if you want to go racing, you stump the cash, you buy the car, or you join with a team, and that's how you go into it. So joining these kind of competitions and and trying to get in through the back of mechanics and all that type of stuff and annoying someone until they eventually give you a drive for nothing. It's more of a case of you got to work doubly as hard. You got to give away a lot of time to kind of get a chance or just an opportunity to steer the car in that sense. So yeah, usually in most conventional ways, if someone wants to go racing, they buy their race car, they join their race, they make their race team and go racing, or they just lease it and they stump the cash for that. Both of them were just not an option at the time.
These days, of course, you're racing Aussie racing cars, but but to have the opportunity to do Bathurst in a production car and to have that experience learning with that competition. What did you learn from that? Did you learn a lot about not just mechanical sympathy, but driver sympathy, trying to race with an endurance mindset? Did you learn a lot very quickly racing at Bathurst? Yes
and no, in a sense. I believe that every single day you're learning. So the moment I stop learning, I just go brain dead. If I'm not learning, I start pulling things apart and get kicked out of the house. So there was a lot of stuff to learn, but there's also a lot to learn at every single race meeting you go to. It's never rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
There is one little factor that you just then become an expert on. So it's, my second Bathurst 6-hour I did with Colin Osborne's team, the last race he run, it was a lot about how to understand a front-wheel drive turbo French car. How does it start to unwind? How do you start to get onto the power? How do you make these tires, which those MRF tires were literally exploding on the rims?
There was a lot of controversy about those tires. I know that for a fact.
Controversy is probably the nice way to put it. But yeah, as well, they are production cars at the end of the day. So if you've got a really good team that understands it, those cars will go 24 hours as long as you keep them off the curbs and as long as you keep them off the walls. Be smart with what you can do and don't over rev them, which is the same as every car. But it did teach me a bit about strategy. It's taught me that if we're going to do it, we would do it different ways, or we would steal a lot how to do those ways as well. There's a lot that comes from it. So every category is different. Everything can be learnt from it. And yeah, it's just a constant learning process.
I love the fact that you've grown up in Newcastle, and Newcastle has a rich motorsport history. It was the location where the first speedway solo motorbike meeting was held in the 1920s. So there's a lot of prestige, and that's at the Newcastle Showground, of course, where Hunter Stadium is where it is these days. But I mean, are you lucky that you've grown up in a region of New South Wales where motorsport is very, very vibrant, even though there's not much motor racing in terms of a racetrack or whatever. We don't have the street circuit racing anymore, the Newcastle 500, but the fact that people were interested going up to Newcastle and racing around the streets of Newcastle, I mean, that was a pretty big deal, for a few years, and everyone loved being up there.
Yeah, exactly. Newcastle's got it's kind of got the best of both worlds. We live closer to the city around Merriweather and stuff like that. So it's probably comparable to your North Shore in that sense. But if you step one suburb away, it becomes into bogan blue collar town. So it's got this beautiful mix of blue and white collar that mix in between each other.
Yeah.
So, and there was no doubt about it. Even when I was growing up all through Newcastle, everyone was car mad. It was a case of you either surfed or you loved cars, and sometimes you joined them in between each other. So everyone, because we had BHP and the mines and all that type of stuff. What do us bogans want to do? We want to buy hot cars and we want to race them around the streets from there. If you've ever heard of the famous Kooringang street races.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I've only heard of them in folklore, but what were they like? What were they like when you were growing up?
I only heard about them. I don't know what you're talking about. it was.
Hear no evil, speak no evil. In one ear, out the other.
They can't get me for anything, but it was, you could spend a whole night out in a weeknight drag racing up and down in the back of these industrial estates and stuff like that, and no one ever got hurt. It didn't really get the burnout stuff involved. It was all the straight line stuff. And mate, it would be like a scene out of Fast and Furious. Absolutely no word of a lie, lining up against your mates and challenging them for whatever. Didn't see any pink slips get changed hands, but probably a little bit of cash from there. But it was just a case of Newcastle went, well, if we haven't got a racetrack, we'll make our own. So
exactly.
So they did.
But how cool was it to race around the streets of Newcastle when, in a legal sense, when the Newcastle 500 was there? Obviously, you've done Aussie racing cars around the streets of Newcastle, but how cool was it to actually do that in front of a huge crowd?
Yeah, it was amazing. It's like if, flashbacks onto it, you could sit there and just, cry about how beautiful the situation was. But to be able to race around the streets that we literally would take our hot cars to and sit on the foreshore of Newcastle and show off with our mates and all that type of stuff. It used to be, I used to say I held the lap record of Newcastle Street Circuit before Scott McLaughlin got his foot in 2017.
Do you like to remind Scott about that?
Whenever he rings me, I just deny his phone calls now. He's getting a bit annoying, so I'm kidding. But yeah, it was an absolutely unreal experience.
Yeah.
Whilst we went there and we were very super focused, we treated it like every other racetrack and stuff like that. As soon as you got out of the car and you were swarmed by people, your mates, your family and all that, you were just like, wow, I can't believe I've finally got an opportunity to showcase my skill. The surfer gets to go down to the beach and show off his skills there, and the footy player gets to go to the stadium and show off his skills there. I never had that opportunity in Newcastle. And when this event came along and I could show, hey, I'm a race car driver. You've never seen me. Now you can see how I do it and what's going on and all that type of stuff. It was just the best experience I've had.
Do you miss it?
Absolutely. Every single day I miss it. It's without getting into the politics of it and just the raw emotion of it, there's no way to describe it. And, there was no one in the pits that really hated it. I know John Bowe had his words to say, but I wouldn't take a lot of words of what he says out of the event. But it was just one thing that everyone loved it. The atmosphere, the track, the swooping down the hill. It was a gut-wrenching roller coaster ride to be banging around there. And it was 10 tenths. Like, it was the tightest, most stressful street circuit you could be on. So, yeah, it was one of the tracks that just really challenged you, and is something I'll forever miss.
And there is still lingering remnants of the circuit that still linger around the actual streets of Newcastle itself. Mm-hmm. Do you hope attitudes will eventually change and the Newcastle 500 will come back?
Having a deep dive into it and being a part of probably the politicalness that, because I'm a local and I live right next to the racetrack. So, and being really deep into it, if, like I said the other day when an article came out, if the Newcastle 500 returns, I will eat my hat. Then, it is just not something that's going to happen. Yeah. It's, whilst I can see the benefits into it, there was a lot of technicalities to and forth, it was really a case of everyone's fault that was involved around that circuit made us demise of the circuit, from the council to the locals to supercars to residents to everyone. It wasn't just a case of pointing the fingers. everyone was to blame. And, we could spend hours going into deep of why it's not happening. But the benefit from there is we've got two amazing racetracks that are happening, in the Hunter and Lake Macquarie, half an hour away from the city. So Circuit Italia is now open. That's open for practice days and test days and stuff like that.
That's a very good track from what I've seen already. Very fast and very unforgiving. I like it.
Exactly. Ball tearing. I like it. So it's one that we found that testing is really good there because we get a mix of everything. The off-camber corners are some of the most difficult corners I've had to race around. It is one thing that's amazing. So, it's a great testing facility in a private facility that we will be using a lot more regularly. And the other one is Black Rock Motorsport Park, which is going to be, oh, man, unbelievable. I've got a great relationship with Tony, who's building the place at the moment. That is going to be world-class. To give up the supercar street race, to get two circuits that we've been waiting 30, 40 years to have right on our doorsteps, I tell you what, I'd take it every day.
I agree with that. And I've been to Black Rock, and I actually went up there in my capacity for SBS when we did the Dakar last year in 25.
Yes.
And we were there to interview Toby Price because he launched his campaign because he's sponsored by Black Rock. And I got to go and have a hot lap with Toby in his Can-Am, and it was so fun. there was a little bit of a moment because this is a whole new facility, brand new private facility, and it was still in the process of actually getting the base being laid down. But it was basically all gravel and dirt. But Toby is just flinging this thing and not knowing what to expect because of not knowing this circuit before. I was holding on a little bit for dear life. Not that I'm scared of, but I'm holding on and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to expect here? Am I going to be flung around? Could I fall out of this utility terrain vehicle or something? But then it actually became much more enjoyable as the lap went on. And I'm like, I could just take my hands off and just sit and just enjoy it. And I absolutely had an absolute blast. Toby can hustle anything with four wheels just as much as you can hustle a motorbike. So that was really cool. And that facility, when that is up to speed and ready to go, a lot of people are going to be very, very surprised on how world-class for a private resort that facility is going to be, because anyone can bring their cars, pay to go and drive it, and they're going to have an absolute ball. It is, and I'm not just saying that, I'm not getting paid. It's genuinely a very, very nice facility, and there's so much natural terrain and the undulations. It makes it so good, and I can't wait for it to be fully complete.
Exactly right. It's one of those facilities that Australia's been waiting for a long time. So to have it in our back doorstep, or Newcastle's back door, is fantastic, and it's just short of about an hour and a half probably from Sydney, on a good stretch of road from there. They are doing everything right. They understand that they can't just put up a racetrack and then start fighting with the locals. They've got the locals on site and having many meetings with the council, and they're doing everything in their capacity to keep everyone happy, which is they would know that this track has to have a long-term goal. It's not a case of setting it up and a year later pumping it off and selling it off from there. So whilst we might not see a huge amount of tarmac being laid, even the last time I went up there talking about tarmac, they finally laid their test strip in the driveway going in there. I think they would have spent a good 3 to 6 months on just the driveway going into it, because they laid down exactly what they wanted on the racetrack to go into the driveway. It was a good test for them to see if it could happen. The amount of rehabilitation they've done to the land as well, because it was an old mining site, the tyres they've had to pull out of the ground, the contaminants that they've had to pull out of the ground and stuff like that. They understand everything and want to get it right. And at the end, we're going to have one of the best facilities in Australia, let alone the world. I know that. And yeah, I'm not getting paid. I've just been there. I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I know what's capable. And it's just going to be a fantastic time when everyone gets to take their cars out there.
And I would love to have Tony Palmer on the podcast as well. I have met him, lovely guy, and he's keen to come on at some point, but we need to organise that. So Tony, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on at some point. That'd be really, really cool. I loved also, and we'll go into your workshop and the beautiful array of poses in your background, but I want to touch on the way you propose to your lovely wife, Ali, who is your second in command, or she runs the show, not just with your workshop, but also with Chicane Motorsport. But you proposed to your wife in a very unusual way. Please explain about that.
Well, it was one thing with proposals. I don't know if you've had to go down the proposal route.
Oh, no, I've been there. I've done it. I've done it.
You've done it?
Yep.
Good. All right, no worries. And because I'm a chauvinistic, show-off, like to promote myself too much.
You do a lot on social media with your mullet and everything. That we do know.
Yeah. Because I'm a show-off, or a D-head, as a lot of people like to call me. If I was going to make it big, I had to make it big, and it was circling around that this event was going to be the last Newcastle event. We were really ecstatic to be on the bill. COVID interrupted it beforehand. We're coming back onto it. Newcastle was on, and it started to come to a time, well, I really should be dropping the knee for Ali. That is the next stage of life.
Yeah.
And I'm going, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it big. So we foregoed sponsorship for that round, which is the round where you should be able to pull in the most sponsors type stuff. And I rang up a mate and said, hey, I'm going to put your sticker on the car as a placeholder, in a sense, because come, what was it, the Saturday? I think, Saturday morning for qualifying, I'm going to put a proposal sticker on the side of the car, and not just a small sticker. It was the whole side of the car saying, Ali, will you marry me? But because Ali is so much a part of the team and so much a part of our life, how hard do you think it is to get your wife to disappear from the home racetrack while you're stickering the doors up to say, will you marry me, so she can see you on the front grid?
How difficult was it?
It was extremely difficult. I had to create, we were in the biggest fights and putting off each other, so I could kind of create some drama so she could stay away from me. I had to get my sponsors involved to be problematic so she could attend to them, to get her away from the car so we could put the sticker on there so we could line up on the grid for race one with a proposal on there. A great mate, Singo, who's been a long time sponsor of me. He started carrying on and being really hard to deal with and all that type of stuff. So she had to put all her attention over there so we could focus on getting the car sticker, because we literally had the doors off the car until they said, all right, it's roll out time. Stuck the doors on, stuck the stickers on, pushed it out, and off we went. So, it was not recommended. I think I ended up coming in and I had the worst race of my life because I was too busy thinking about her and stuff, and I ran it off the track and I was locking brakes, and because I qualified really well. And then I've just gone, all right, that's the last time we do it. Rip the stickers off, put she said yes on the side for the rest of the weekend, and I can get back to racing. But it was definitely one of the bigger moments on how to propose.
Yeah, and what was her reaction? Did you get told her reaction when she saw the sticker on the car?
Well, lucky that someone was there filming. So our media manager at the time was filming it. So I got to experience it. She was screaming, crying, tears, hugging, and all that type of stuff as well. We flew the family out for it because her family's from America as well, to experience it as well. So I got to live it outside of the car as well as inside of the car as well. I think when I came in for the last lap after the checkered flag, I was like, geez, I hope she said yes, because that was one of the hardest races I've ever had to do. The mechanic at the time was like, yeah, you're on for it. So as I got out of the car, she ran over screaming 100 mile an hour, crash tackled me, I dropped the knee, and the ring was on and all secured.
Well, your proposal was definitely far better than Charlie Robertson being proposed by Liam Talbot. Hi, Liam. I love you, mate. Which he did on live television. We've got to remember that. That is different, which was on live television as well on Fox Sports. Yep. But yours is definitely much more provocative out there. And at least she said yes, and she supports what you do. Is she as interested in motorsport as you are?
Before meeting me, not a single bit. After meeting me, she loves it as much as me. So she can be the biggest critique on the lounge with me while we're watching someone else's support car races. It was actually funny as a bit of an extended bit for their, the stickers we had after it was, she said yes with the big love hearts on the side to let everyone in the fans know what's going on. And she came up to me after the meeting and she goes, all right, smart Alec, what if I said no? And I said, oh, well, that's simple. I had the she said no stickers printed off in the truck ready to go. And she's like, you're not serious. I was like, yeah, come in. Jumped in the truck and here they are stuck on the side of the fence. She said no. And I said, don't doubt me. I'm always prepared for anything. So I knew what the answer was. We're already living and had a mortgage together. So
Yeah.
we were going that way. But I knew you'd ask that question, so I made sure I got it there. And they're still there today. She said no. So.
At some point, she's going to say, can you just throw them away? Because we don't know. No?
I say too bad. They're a rare collector's item. If you've seen the posters on me, I like to collect. That bit of the sticker might be worth a lot of money in later years. You never know.
Exactly. I want to touch on what you got in the background before we move on to what makes you tick about cars. You have a great collection of old motorsport posters, much like I do, actually. I have a very, very cool collection. Some are wrapped up in put away if I ever decide to frame them. I do have a couple, which I showed you before we went on air. But you've got quite a few cool posters. And you mentioned as well, Matt Nolte, who we want to get on the podcast as well, and I know him fairly well too. You two love the Adelaide era of the Australian Grand Prix, and you've got one right behind you from the 1987 race. So how did you manage to scam that one?
Mate, I'm a shonk and I'll rob everyone for everything they've got. It's a lot of the benefit now is collecting has become that little bit easier with eBay and Facebook Marketplace and all that type of stuff. You also find that you have common connections with people as well. So, you'll talk about, this race. I've got a poster from that. Oh, me too. Do you want to buy it off me or do you want to swap it for something? Yeah. They're a common thing of how we do. This poster behind me, the Adelaide Alive one, is actually a bit of a rare one because it's got the, you might remember the celebrity challenge races that they used to do with all the Formula 1 events.
Do I ever?
Yeah. I got to move this clapped out transporter seat that I'm sitting on because I haven't got enough money for furniture in this office. But it's got the it says major encores and celebrity race sponsor of Nissan down bottom, so it's quite a longer poster.
That's right, because Nissan were the course car provider, and they sponsored the celebrity race for many years.
Exactly right. So when it comes to me collecting stuff, because I'm such a diehard about these particular events and stuff, I don't want just the poster. I want the odd shaped poster that might have been hanging up in the back of the dunny or in a corporate box somewhere or something like that, where they might have only printed off 20 or 30 of them, or little collectible things. So I think, I go around collecting the Foster's cans from that Grand Prix event as well.
I've got a few actually, and a couple of Tooheys cans also.
Yeah, and they're unopened as well, which is the rarity thing of them. When I go antique shopping, that's where I've been able to find them and stuff like that. So I'm always sniffing around in antique shops and stuff like that. I've got my select ones that I like that just so happen to have motorsport stuff every now and again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know I've got a couple of cans, and my late dad, who used to work in the club industry for years, he always used to get the cans from Foster's and Tooheys.
Yep.
Of course, Tooheys sponsored the 1000 back in the day. Foster's with the Australian Grand Prix, and he'd always bring them home for me, but they would always be empty. They wouldn't be because, well, you're not going to introduce a child with a beer can that's fully full. You want to be responsible, and he was being responsible about it at the time. But it's really cool because I still got those cans. I tried to give them to a mate of mine who's involved in the media as well, and he actually declined them because he says, I've got no room for them. And I'm like, what? Because they're so collectible. I got one from 89, two from 1990, and I think I've got a couple of the Foster's ones are from 88 and 89. So they're pretty cool and they're pretty collectible. So I don't know if I don't want to get rid of them because it'd be worth a bit now.
Oh, that's it. It's they're worth as much as someone will pay, but sometimes the monetary aspects. Well, obviously, I don't want to overpay for anything. But if something really tickles my interest, it's something I want. I'll discuss a couple of some of the other photos. I'll let you see them. I don't know if
here we go. Bathurst 81.
So,
yep. Bathurst 81 with Peter Williamson, of course. I know the 97 Bathurst 1000 poster. I think that was the last one that Greg McNeil did covering the Bathurst 1000. Greg McNeil's a very well-known motorsport artist, and he still does a lot of artwork. I've got a couple of these in my collection. But what's the one is that the Cannonball Run from 94?
That is the Northern Territory Cannonball Run.
That's right.
And the thing that I don't know if I'll love or hate it, or however you think, or the controversial thing, we should have it. That was probably the last Cannonball Run they did.
It was the first and only one, in fact, 1994.
Yeah, exactly right. And at that event, it was actually, I believe it was either a Ferrari F40 or Ferrari Testarossa.
It was an F40. It was an F40.
Through one of the speed sections, had that fatal accident.
Oh, I do remember that.
To have that Cannonball Run poster and it's got a Testarossa Ferrari on the front of it is a little bit, if that would have been canned, or they would have pulled those posters off, or, changed it in a later light. So to have a poster from that event is, especially as only one run once, and it's a bit of a folklore, is a bit controversial. Even with the Mount Panorama 97 race, that was the 2-litre race. I'm not a big fan. Well, I love 2-litre race cars and stuff like that for what they are. I wasn't a big fan of the series, but that's got its own controversial story in there as well.
Of course, I remember that so well. Yeah.
The Battle of the Bathurst. So every single poster I've got tries to have a bit of a story, or it's got that collectability in it, in that sense. There's a couple of other Bathurst posters and Amaroo Park posters that you can actually buy at the Bathurst Museum. They're easily picked up there as well.
I've got a couple of couple of Bathurst 12-hour posters as well, the original Bathurst 12-hour. And I'm glad I got it. One from 1992, which I wanted for years, and there's a guy who's a middleman for the original promoter, and I know him very well. I won't mention him by name because he won't like me if I mention his name. But I got, and I respect his wishes, but I bought it, and when I found out, I'm his middleman, I'm like, I could have just gone to him and just got one. And then he tells me later, it's for my retirement fund. I think, what retirement fund? You're already made. What are you talking about? But it's cool. I respect and acknowledge the history of the sport just as much as you do.
Yeah, exactly right. It's when I say I'm a diehard for it, I've lived and breathed this every single day of my life. And it's beneficial. I can have this separate, mechanical workshop for the race team that I can hang my shit in. I'd like to probably say it's how my wife likes to say it. I've got some new additions coming in very shortly, which I'll have to show to you when they finally finish getting trained.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like my bachelor pad in a sense, and I want to be able to go up to a wall and go, hey, this is a story about what's going on here. I collect records as well. I want to be able to have a story.
Same.
Well, yeah, well, geez, are we separated at birth? Are we the same person?
We must be. We must be. I mean, I've got it. I must admit, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I'm a fan of Queen, the rock band Queen. Yep. I mean, everyone has their own quirks. I know Richard Crowell has his fondness for Pink Floyd. He loves Pink Floyd. I have my love and fondness for Queen. So I've got quite a bit of a Queen collection, and I'm gonna take the camera, and if I don't know if you can see, you've already seen the guitars, but
yes,
over there you're probably not going to see, but there's actually if you see behind there, got a couple posters which I bought when I was on my honeymoon in London. And there's another one there above the sim seat. So there's and there's a lot of records and the like. So very, very similar. Got a lot of records and the like. So I totally understand the collection.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's something that'll just keep growing until I run out of space. I'm so keen of preserving as much history and stuff like that of those times, the 80s and 90s and 2000s, in those times that I grew up in, that, I want to be surrounded by that. And every single person that's come over to the workshop, even though it's a bit of a pigsty at the moment, it's probably a nice way of putting it, they've been blown away with it. I've been able to show Nolte the collection as well. We always compare stuff. Nolte, if you're actually listening to this, can you stop wasting Connor's time and get on the podcast? If I got to do it, you got to bloody do it as well, you grub. Go on, get on there and share some stories.
You know what he'll say to me? And this is a running joke that, because I used to work, like, when he came to Sydney for a period, because he lived in Sydney for a while, but then he went back to Adelaide. He actually, so he did some, when he actually started doing some stuff for supercars properly, he did some stuff also for AVE, and who of course do Speed Week, and I used to work for AVE. And one of the running jokes, he used to badger me and pester me, like he pesters everyone. Love him to bits.
Oh, is this Matt Nolte you're talking about? No. Character reference on that, please. Come on.
You know what he always used to say? Because it became a running joke where I go, yeah, all right, I know. I understand what you're talking about. And then he just decided to reel me in. He goes, I know. Yes, I know, Nolte. Yeah. I know. He'll never let me live it down. That's just Nolte. He's just one of those great characters of the sport, and the same for Chad Nailon as well. I mean, put those two together. They're nutcases. They're funny.
You also you go home at 5 o'clock in the morning because you're just talking smack all night.
I've done retro nights with Nolte, very drunken retro nights with Nolte a few times. I remember them very well, but wake up with a very sore head the very next day. So we've had fun times.
I blame him for my hangover from the Adelaide Grand Prix. Not Grand Prix.
The Adelaide Grand Final.
Sorry. I was sponsored by them, so I've got to get it right. BP Adelaide Grand Final. I'm still good on that way.
Was there a retro club that he took you to afterwards?
I don't know. Jeez, I think it was a Cowboys club at one stage or something like that. And we're not talking about the NRL team.
No. We're talking one of the many nightclubs and other forms of entertainment in the Adelaide Strip. Yeah.
I've been caught with him with too many beers and too many fireballs out the back of too many dark alleys.
Fireballs. Last time I had a big night with Nolte, there were a lot of fireballs that night, and that was around the time I'd started seeing my now wife. So how I survived that night, I have no idea, but there we go.
Yeah, he's a giant of the king of our support category. I'll tell you what. But
he's great.
No, I've had a great relationship, like many people have over the years.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and we'd love to have him on at some point. Actually, before we go on, your son, is it your son?
Yes, Maxwell.
Maxwell. If Maxwell is going to grow up around cars, do you hope that he follows in the same footsteps as you?
Well, look, I would love it. There's no doubt about it to have your son want to follow in the footsteps and do exactly what you want to do as well. But we're also very understanding parents. If my son becomes a ballerina, he better become the best bloody ballerina that Russia and Europe have to offer. We want to be supportive for what he has to do, but at the same time, I've got a lot of mates who are in motorsport and they've got their kids and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And I remember pulling one of them aside one day and said, "What did you do to get your sons into motorsport? Why do they love it? What did you do, or how did you push them in that direction?" And they said, "Mate, we didn't do it. If anything, we encouraged them not to go down this path, but they do what the dad wants to do. It's normal, like when they're little and toddlers and little kids, they attach on to their parents and they just mimic everything. So there's no doubt he's going to follow us around to all racetracks and stuff like that as well. If he wants to become a race car driver, no doubt about it, I will be putting all my money into him and making sure he's the best racing car driver he can be. But if he wants to take up golf, I'll be doing the same thing with golf. So, you never know what will come from it. We just want to support him no matter what.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
All right, Cody McKay, as we mentioned before, you love motorsport, you love cars, you live and breathe them 24/7. You run a business, for goodness sake, rebuilding cars and the like. But I want to know what makes you really, really tick as a car enthusiast. So I want to know the first car you drove.
So the first car I drove, I would have to say it was my dad's Holden Rodeo dual cab ute, because he had a manual. I had to learn how to drive manual.
As you do.
And that's it. I think the second, without him knowing, was his VXSS Commodore, which I had a little bit of fun from there.
Are we talking legal fun or illegal fun?
Fun. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So, no one got hurt. No one was in any situation. And
Yes.
no, we weren't doing 250 Ks on the highway and stuff like that. It was kind of, back streets and back paddocks and stuff like that. So they were, probably the two cars. They were the two cars in the family, the SS and a black VXSS, 17-inch ROH wheels. It was pretty cool for the time. Dad wouldn't let me drive his Tirana, unfortunately. So he sold that before I could get my hands into it. And just the typical 1-ton Rodeo.
Oh, no. With a diesel motor or a petrol motor?
No, petrol, gutless petrol motor. We're talking a long time ago now. It's just, early.
And you mentioned a Tirana. What kind of Tirana were we talking about?
So Dad had a LX canary yellow Tirana that he that was his kind of last of his hot cars in a sense. He had the SS, so he's like, oh well, this is a time where Tiranas weren't really worth anything. Had a 308 Elderbrock manifold and Elderbrock carburetors. God, this is going back to when I'm like 12 years old. Had a nice brown interior. He took the guards off it, like it was an L34 kind of mock-up, and then he took the guards off it to just look like a LX Tirana in that sense. I do remember it was open diff because he tried to do a burnout out the front yard one day and only one wheel spun. So that was a nice welcoming way to the area. But yeah, just one of the many hot cars that Dad had over his time.
Canary yellow. Sorry, canary yellow? That's Australian gold, my friend, and don't you fucking forget it.
This was yellow. It was Tweety Bird yellow. That's how yellow it was. So, it stung out like a dog's balls, I can tell you what.
I love it. Okay, the first car you owned, proper car that you owned once you became a licensed driver.
Yeah, so the first one I had was a HQ Belmont Ute, and the Belmont is very important because I couldn't get a Kingswood, and the Belmont was the bog stock version of the Ute.
It was like the base model, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's it. So people say, "Oh, he's got a Kingswood," and I was like, "No, I can't even afford that." I got it for $500, 3 on the tree with a 173 in it, like with drum brakes all round. So it had
that's lethal. That's lethal.
Yeah, and they never worked. It worked on the left-hand side one time and it wouldn't work on the other side. So you'd put the brakes in traffic and it just spear into you. The guy on there. And I'm a 16-year-old apprentice still learning how to build, drum brakes and stuff like that. And when I started, it was about 2003 or 2004, I think, when I was first in my apprenticeship at 16.
Yeah.
We were on the BA Falcons then, or the AU to BA Falcons. So we didn't rebuild the drum brakes and stuff like that. They had disc brakes. That was old 1974 HQ Belmont Ute. But I did it up and cleaned it up. That's how I learned that I hated bodywork. So I never bogged a car ever again. I'd service it myself. I put a new front end on it and stuff like that to make it look like the current spec and all those type of stuff. So it was a pretty cool car. I do miss that one.
Yeah, that's really cool. And given that there was more than 400 examples that were built in a very long period of time before they moved up to, I think, the HZ or something. I can't remember what the next model cycle was for the Kingswoods or for the H series Holdens, but like 400,000 cars that they built from I think 1972 to 74, something like that. I mean, that is just mental. Like, you couldn't do that these days with the modern cars. Like, you could probably get in the model lifetime about 100 to 200,000, but 400,000? No wonder there was so many HQ race cars that were being rebuilt from scrapped Holdens and the like. I mean, race bears were just rubbing their hands together.
Yeah, they were a dime a dozen, and it was definitely a different time then with our Australian manufacturing. It was so expensive to import a car into the country that the likes of Mitsubishi and Nissan and Austin and all those overseas brands, it was cheaper for them to make a factory here and build a car, or to have say if they wanted to build a car here, they would get Holden to build it, or Ford, or some other manufacturing partner to build these cars. And then obviously when the 90s and 2000s and, into what we've got now, it's so cheap and easy to import stuff from overseas that, you wouldn't bother setting up a manufacturing facility in Australia to cater for what their needs are.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because we are lacking that spark to have a manufacturing industry for cars in this country. And whether it will happen again with the current trend of electric vehicles or the like, we don't know, but it's missing a lot, and we're suffering as a consequence because of it.
Exactly right. The world has changed. It's, now that the world is connected, it's easier to build something in another country and adapt it to our country in a sense. Australia makes up some, I think I remember hearing figures, and don't quote me on it, it was from a supplier, but it was like for Bosch, Australia makes up 1% of their sales in a sense. And we know how big Bosch is, but you've got Europe, America, Asia, all those type of areas that are, that's where you build cars for and build parts for. Australia's just a dumping ground for these. So you're not going to set up a manufacturing area for 25 million people when India's got billions in a sense. So where would you rather send your cars and your products? To where the people are.
Yeah, agreed. The first road trip that you remember?
First road trip. That's a tricky one. I didn't expect to be answered that. But I do remember one of the short road trips that we take. It was a time where I had HJ Kingswood, so I upgraded.
HJ, okay.
Yeah. So it was bog shit brown, but if you sat in the right light, it kind of looked purple. So if you polished it enough from there, and I put these massive, wide wheels onto it that would rub on the guards. I still had the bench seat in the front because, the girlfriends at the time would like to slide over, swapped over to a 4-speed transmission from the 3-speed. And I used to be able to, every now and again, if I could afford the money, to drive down to Sydney or the Central Coast, or drive up to maybe Taree or something like that. So before the thing would overheat and blow up on you. It's just a common thing.
It was a very common thing, yes.
So, it was a case of I did a lot of driving around Newcastle and discovering that, and then you'd finally get a little bit more reliable car, and your mates would go, oh, we've booked a holiday house up at Bullaroo or something like that, an hour or two away. So you'd make that into your road trip in a sense, because I always kept local to Newcastle because I always owned shit boxes. So I remember quite clearly. I had this HQ white ute. It was a Kingswood, and I was like, "Great, we're going to go down the coast and spend our time away." Halfway down there, the radiator hoses, and the coolant system all blew itself to bits. And I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to get a modern car. So that one got sold on, and on to the next one.
Exactly. First time you changed a tyre?
It would have been about 15, and I would have been doing it at my Cert 2 course at my school. So my school that I went to, St Francis Xavier's in Newcastle, had their own little automotive area where they would teach Cert 2, which was the whole reason I dropped out of the other high school I was going at to finish my senior years there. Pretty much went in there, got my Cert 2, said I hate school and I want to get out of there. But there we learnt basic skills of, how to top up your oil, how to pull an engine apart, how to brake things, how to swap tires around and all that type of stuff. And I'd practice that with my cars on the weekend. So, it was all on my shit boxes when they blow up, the tyres, because I couldn't afford a set of tyres. And I'd have to go to the wreckers to get another tyre, and I'd have to learn very quickly how to put it on and off.
Yeah. And was that where you got your interest in becoming a mechanic as a career?
I would say yes. It was. I remember it very clearly that I walked into the I believe it was the careers counsellor's office, and I said, "Look, not going to lie to you, I hate school. I can't do it. I'm not that smart to do your tests, and I'm not going to university. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know what I want to do. My mum won't let me quit until I get a job." And she goes, "Well, you like cars, yes. Well, do you want to become a mechanic?" And I go, "Well, I suppose so. That's probably the right place I go." She goes, "Great. well, Costa's Ford across the road are hiring, so I'll set you up with a job. I go, oh, but I like Holdens. I don't want to work on Fords.
And
It turned out-
Closter's is one of the biggest dealerships up in the Hunter region as well.
Exactly. It turned out fantastic because they came out with a BA and BF Falcon. They're the biggest shit boxes known to man. So
Hang on. Hey, stop.
Hold on. The Commodores are also shit boxes. I always say to everyone, everything is a shit box. It's just the depth that varies. There is no fantastic car.
You're going to upset a lot of Ford fans. You're going to...
I know, but then again, I equally think the Commodore is equal as much of a shitbox. So, and this is coming from someone that's owned plenty of Falcons and owned plenty of Holdens and serviced and fixed them and all that type of stuff. So,
did you just openly admit as well that you're a Holden fan?
I believe my Holden love, well, when we grew up, you picked a side. You were Holden and Ford. We all know that.
Yeah.
And it was a case of Christmas dinner. You couldn't even sit on the same side of the table. Like we all know that. And
yes.
I was a diehard Holden guy growing up. I've since grown up, and there's no doubt I've got a passion for Holdens. But I believe now I've got a passion for all cars. It's I've really, over my life of becoming more comfortable and understanding cars and driving other people's cars, I've taken the blinkers off and really been open to something. Like as much as I said the BA and BF was the biggest shitbox in the world, I believe the best car that's ever been built is the BF XR6 Turbo or the FG XR6 Turbo. They are just one of the best cars in the world. There's serious power under them. So from there, whilst, I've still got Holdens that I own and Holdens that I'm fixing up, I've really opened up to what my love of cars is like.
What kind of music do you listen to when you go on a road trip with your wife?
It varies. I love my variation for music. So we could be sitting there listening to, we could be listening to yacht rock. I'm loving that, a bit of that lately. I'm getting a bit
Well, you're
old,
getting into Doobie Brothers and the like, eh?
Yeah. Oh, mate. I could. Doobie Brothers, a bit of Fleetwood Mac and stuff like that. Absolutely loving, growing up around that music.
Same.
Love a bit of heavy metal. Love a bit of hip hop. Love everything. I used to say I like everything other than country and western. Now I'm starting to love country and western songs. If anything, I think I'm listening to more 90s and 2000s girl pop bands lately because, God, some of those songs just slap. Like, my whole race day playlist, and I'll have to share it to you, is just, it psychs people out, but it gets you pumped. I tell you what, when Shania Twain says, "Let's go, girls," it is the most empowering thing that you've ever heard in your life. It's our theme song for the team. I could kick a door off its hinges when that song comes on, I tell you what. So we could start another pod of going through the depths of music and stuff like that. Same thing like with my cars. I've opened up a lot of my love of music, maybe some of the extreme screamo hardcore that I probably listened to back in the day when I was a kid. I've turned a bit away from that. I want something with a bit of volume behind it in the sense of the lyrics and the songs and everything that makes it up. But yeah, I am very open to whatever. So I've got about 1,000 songs. I skip through all my Spotify playlists and I just let the mood of the day feel with where I go.
Well, when you're married to someone that loves her R&B and her hip hop and the like, and I don't mind Tupac and Biggie Smalls as well. Yeah, you do. Your tastes in music do tend to change over a long period of time. But then again, I have friends that loved urban music and the like, so I kind of get used to it, and you go, oh yeah, I like this song, so it's like, I'll just listen to it. Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one thing with music. I've loved what social media, TikTok, Instagram, and stuff like that's done for us because I believe it's really expanded my love of music as well. For example, I went down the other day exploring through a couple of songs, found the song "Chicago Street Player." And I didn't realize that was the backing of a really big disco or EDM song, which then when you take a bit out of it was towards a Pitbull song as well. And you're like, oh, my God. So all of this is kind of linked together in this. So I like discovering where the songs came from and that. So when I'm in the car and I've got me and my music together, you can go down some pretty weird rabbit holes with me.
There's definitely quite a few rabbit holes I'm going down at the moment, just trying to find songs where samples have been taken out of. And I've decided to start a playlist with some of those songs from the dance songs in the 90s and 2000s, hip-hop songs. It's just all these remixes, and you go, where do these originals come from? Some I've known for a while, but some you just think, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And it's wild. It's very, very wild. But there's a lot of legal hullabaloo when it comes to things like that. That's a gold mine.
That's their problem, not my problem. Exactly. I just want to be able to download and listen to it.
Exactly. Eating in cars, yes or no?
I'm allowed to eat in cars. No one else is allowed to eat in my car.
Fair answer.
Because I'm like, okay, well, I know this can go in my mouth this way and I can protect myself, and there's no chips under my seat. I can guarantee it. I get in my wife's car and there's a whole Macca's tray of large chips underneath there. It's been dropped over the years. It's eating in necessity, I like to say, it's a good example of we're traveling to a race meeting. I'm towing the car. I want to get there in breakneck speed, as all dads want to do. They want to make good time on the highway. You're pulling in, the engine's running, you're running out, you're grabbing a McDonald's cheeseburger, you're in the car, you've stopped it, you put the rubbish in the bin at the next thing. So I don't mind eating in the car. It's the mess in the car that really breaks me. And I see a lot of customers' cars that I think need hazmat suits to be worked on, if anything.
Yes, there's a few that could be best left to the imagination, I think. Did you get your license first go?
I did. I got my L's first go, but I remember my parents held me back on my 16th birthday because they wanted to make, I think it was for my P's. They wanted me a bit more ready. And I actually thought that when I did the test, I failed. So like at the start of the test, I did something that I thought was wrong. And I've gone, oh, well, I failed anyways. I'll just drive casually around until we're done. Little did I know that when I turned up, they've gone, yep, you're sweet to go. Here's your license. They're going, oh, so you mean I've got to relax more? Wow, that's a good tip to have and a learning experience. But I do remember I got knocked back for my green peas. I think I went in there too cocky after that and relaxed too much and did the online testing and just botched it. I just didn't even look too hard into it or study for it.
Don't relax.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fine. The psychology of the motorsport, I learn a lot from those experiences of, what you need and how you need to train the mind for things. And I like to use that as a life lesson. So I can technically say yes with, with brackets beside it.
Here's an interesting question. And for someone that has dealt with new and old cars as a mechanic, what's the one thing you wish people would appreciate more in cars?
It's very tricky because a car's either a beautiful machine that needs to be respected and cared for and all that type of stuff, or there's cars that are literally a washing machine. They are 4 doors, 4 wheels, they're white, they push down the road, they do the job to get you from A to B. You don't become obsessed with Mazda CX-3s or something like that. There probably is, and I've upset everyone that owns a CX-3, but, I haven't seen a sports edition yet. The one thing I wish that people would really respect with cars is just the maintenance and the cleanliness that comes down to it. So those people that treat a car like a washing machine, it's just a thing that they slam shut, they just smack around, they do whatever they need to. Oh, yeah, it's blown up. See you later. I'd love to see them change oil and change the brakes and just keep the interiors clean in a sense. Get your garbage out of it. That, like, literal food and garbage, that's the one things that really annoy me. So it's not a case of you have to be a car person. You just have to be a person that cares for your items.
What's the best car you've owned?
I'm going to say the car I just bought about a year ago, which I've been hunting for many years. But even when I say it's the best car, it's in bits at the moment because it blew up. I'll go with this one because it's my love of my life at the moment. So I've just picked up.
Hang on, careful.
Oh, we can't go into that. So, all right.
No. Careful. Careful in the sense that you said love of your life. Isn't your wife the love of your life?
Yeah, she's in there somewhere.
Yeah. Go on, continue.
Yeah, when I say love of the life, I'm a firm believer that everything has to be on the same line. Don't categorize and go, oh, my kids come first, and then my wife, and then my cars. They all come first.
Right.
It's just you're just dedicating different times of the day towards them. So I'm not one to put things in places, and it's either I care for you or I don't care for you in the sense. So but back to the cars before you rinse me. Look, I'm already in enough trouble by the wife. I don't need you on as well, Connor.
Sorry, mate.
I picked up a white 1988 Porsche 944 Turbo.
Oh, here we go.
It is. I hate it so much at the moment, but I love it so much because it makes me just feel like I'm in Miami Vice, like I'm some drug lord driving between collections or something like that in the 80s. Like it suits my 80s aesthetics down to it.
Well, with the mullet and everything else, why am I not surprised?
Yeah, exactly. So, but probably I would technically put down. I'd put that as second place in the sense. I know I said not to categorize things, but I've had my VY Cross 8 Crewman, which is an all-wheel drive V8 4-speed Crewman for years. It was actually I bought it off my dad about 10 years ago, and I can't kill the thing. And it tows so well, and it sounds so well, and it suits my personality. And I've had this love of old cars lately because I don't need to worry about EGRs and DPFs and expensive parts going wrong. It's basic. You can fix it on the side of the road, but you can still have a lot of fun with it as well. So, yeah, definitely the one I don't. I'm going to put the Porsche second, and I'm going to put my Crewman as first because, God, it just doesn't let me down.
What about the worst car you've owned? Is there one that you've gone, never again?
Ford Ranger two-door that I had. It was a PX. Loved it to bits. I took out a loan to get it, but it cost me so much in injectors and turbos and shit blowing up that I just I fell out of love with them, And that was the time where I was building mini trucks and all that type of stuff, and putting airbag suspension in them with my cool mates. But that one, I think it was the second time I put injectors in it in the 2-3 years of owning it. And at my price, it was about $3 or $4 worth of injectors to get them for the trade discount and stuff. And I ended up having to give it away and still paying the loan off. And I was just like, well, I don't know. I got caught up with the brand new car thing. So I'd probably say that's my worst one and why I keep sticking with my older cars. But yeah, every one of them's been my worst car.
We all say that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like they're kind of like ex-girlfriends. You reminisce on the good times and forget about the bad times.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I
would say that would probably be the worst. Well, that was the car you wish was never made. That Ford Ranger.
But then again, I come back to them and say they're probably the better compared to the newer model Rangers that keep giving us problems. So then I look back and I go, oh, geez, that was probably the last of the good turbo diesel engines before they got overcomplicated. So it is one thing that, like I said, the blinkers are off for a lot of cars. There's no such thing as a great car, a bad car, or anything like that. They've all got a great place in my heart and something that they taught me about. I've actually got a memory about that Ranger, which I probably shouldn't say in the podcast.
Go on.
Bugger it, what are they going to do? Fucking take me to prison.
Go on.
It's
only between you and I and a number of viewers that listen.
Exactly right. There was this. One time I volunteered for the Bathurst 12 Hours as a mechanic. This was my way of like, okay, if I can't race, I've got to be involved in the sport in some way. And I really wanted to be a race car engineer or a mechanic, hands-on, learning, understanding. It's where I got a lot of my skills from. But we were staying at the not the gold diggers, the gold fields on the right-hand side of Forest Elbow.
Yes. What used to be called Coringle Village back in the day.
Yeah, whatever it's called. Well, I know the circuit better than I know what's on the side of it. I know braking marker here. I know the big tree at the chase because that's where my braking marker is.
Yeah.
I know where. Yeah, you know what it's like. Yep. But I jumped in that car, went to Bathurst, volunteered there. I had the wheel alignment was out because I couldn't afford to get a wheel alignment before I went. It had secondhand tires onto it and stuff like that. So the setup and engineering on that car was horrible in a sense, like I kind of, hold myself close thinking about how terrible it was. But I had the opportunity that when we woke up the Monday morning, I was still on the circuit, but the circuit was shut and I was up the top of the circuit. And I've had a bit of a brainwave moment and gone, this might be my first ever time to do a lap of the track at speed and see how it goes. It's a private circuit. It's not under New South Wales rules here. So I decided to go backwards on the circuit, which is all well and good. And they had all these cones laid out, because they were doing a drive day, a V8 race day or something like that, where punters get in the race cars. They're allowed to do the challenge. Got to about the cutting, turned around at the cutting and gone, all right, I've got this whole track to myself and there's going to be no one standing in my way. Let's see what I can do. Ripped around there at God knows speed before I came down to the S's and saw everyone still setting up the cones.
Oh, no.
So I've got this Ranger gear locked up, coming across the top. Oh, no, what am I doing? Slow right down. It's like, I hope they're not the police. I just realised, the guy's setting the cones up. Gave him a wave and then sheepishly got out of Bathurst as quick as I possibly could.
Wow.
So, that was a bit naughty at the time, but, proved that I did it and I'll deny it the whole way.
Don't confirm nor deny. That's a great attitude to have. Best road trip that you've been on?
Best road trip. So a lot of our time spent at the racetrack, but we did used to do a lot of road tripping with a few of my mini trucker mates, I'll call it, back in the day, which is where I really learned how to fabricate and set up suspension and all that type of stuff. And every three or four times a year, we'd all get together with our hot mini trucks and stuff like that, and we go to Bateman's Bay, where there'd be a car show on there, or we'd head up the Queensland Way, or Maxville was another one. All these little country towns. So there was a lot of times where there was, boozy encounters and sitting in back seats and laughing the whole way, because you wouldn't just be in one car. You'd have 20 cars around you at all time going to these shows before you went away for a big weekend. We didn't really go to music festivals. We went to these car shows because you go there, there'd be 100 people of the same age with the same drinking habits and the same problems and stuff like that, so you could go through. So I like to collect them all together in a past life and say, they all had their good times before they wore off. None was more important than the other, except getting pulled over and defected in your cars and stuff like that, because they were obviously illegal. Going from there. So that's probably a bit of a life I don't advertise a lot, but coming to road trips, that's where we spend a lot of our road trips.
Good answer. Like that. Any pet peeves, like things like, actually, no, you're probably the worst person, because I can imagine you've got stickers on cars, fluffy dice, the aftermarket stereos or spoilers. Are you guilty of that?
No, maybe in a past Fast and Furious lifestyle, but definitely not now. It's putting rear wings on cars, and they always seem to be on a Toyota Camry that's doing Uber. It's just it just makes you use more fuel, and it just makes the thing harder to steer. The eye scratch stickers over the front headlights, they're probably one that I really annoy me and stuff like that. They're probably not keeping your car in a nice way, in a sense, where if you've ripped the front bar off, you keep driving around with the front bar off. It's just a case of, doesn't showcase how bad the car is. It kind of showcases how bad of a person you are. So they're probably three things off the top of my mind that annoy me. And then probably not listening to what I want to listen to when I'm in the car, regardless if I'm driving or in the passenger seat. That's a pet peeve. I believe my music's better than anyone else.
We all believe that. We all believe that. Two more questions before we move on to the Dream Garage. And again, I asked about the one thing that you wish people would appreciate more in cars. Here's another one. What feature from a past era would you like to see being brought back into a modern road car?
It's hard because you can bring stuff in, but there's always complications in how they're brought in, and you realise back in the day it was done that way because it was just dodgy. I would like to see cars with more front rake. And when I'm saying that, where the front is low but the back is high, that old muscle car look, they're all flat, or, the local Commodore kids or Burnout kids like to dump the rear and keep the front in the air, which I don't understand. If you want to do burnouts, you want the rear jacked up so you get less grip, but they don't understand that. That's an engineering thing. I'd like to see a car with a nice heavy front rake, like where it just looks like it's shoveling into the ground. They look super cool in that sense. Tires with more tread on them, in a sense. When I say tread, a bigger sidewall, in a sense, I'm sick of these 35 series, 40 series tires that you're putting on hot sports cars. I'd like to see something with, a good 60 sidewall or something like that, so they can grip up. That'd be super cool from that. 8-track players, that'd be pretty cool. Although no one's got 8 tracks anymore.
That's old school. 8-track audio players.
That's going back to my HQ Holden days.
What about cassette players, like cassette decks back in the day?
Cassettes are coming back in.
Yeah.
We're seeing the form of vinyl records are the most popular or the most sold form of physical media we've got. But from that, people are starting to collect cassettes. So we're seeing that the record shops are starting to stock more and more old cassettes, which, cassettes were cool. They're easy to play and all that type of stuff as well until the machine would eat them. So we're probably going to see that CD players are coming back in as well,
And then again, everyone's given away, got rid of their CDs and go, oh, okay, we should have kept them. We should have kept them.
Yeah, they still work. There's CDs. Back then, they were $15 or $20 for a CD.
Yeah.
They're only $2 unless there's something that's collectible or something that's sought after.
Exactly.
So, but then again, the quality of media that comes from a CD is extremely high quality compared to your streaming and downloading. So you might see people getting old songs from there and having good master copies of it.
Yeah, exactly right. Lastly, who taught you how to drive?
I believe I like to tell myself I taught myself how to drive. So in a sense of teaching for the road, it was mum and dad. They're classical mum and dad.
Yeah.
I drive nothing like them from now on. But in a case of the racing side of it, touching on what we were saying at the start of the podcast, it had to be me. So I had to go out, make mistakes. I couldn't really afford a driver coach. So I had to learn from others and repeat those steps. So I never, whilst you'd hang around the go-kart teams and stuff like that, and they give you tips, no one was sitting there and walking you around how to do it type stuff. I remember very clearly I went to Orange at a go-kart track there for a state championship meeting, which was a really cool track. And I'd come off the bottom hairpin and I'd go, oh, yeah, I need to be positioned more to the right-hand side of the track, to set up for the next corners. And I couldn't understand why I was so slow around there. I was like, I'm doing everything right. This is really weird. Until I went for a track walk the next day and realized there was moss growing on the sections where I was racing on, like moss all through the circuit because Orange gets very cold. Meaning that no kart is going over that circuit. And you look next to the racing line next to it and go, oh, so all the rubber marks are over there. So I had to teach myself a lot of, oh, well, no one taught me that trick. I just had to figure it out over the race weekend. So I pull a lot of that information I learnt from go-karting and go, all right, when I'm studying a corner or go around a racetrack I'm not familiar with, how can I maximize the whole thing? I need to try 3 or 4 different lines in practice to really see what's working and then analyze the data when I get back. So, a little bit from everyone, but probably down to me. That's why I'm probably so good. I taught myself how to drive.
Which is why you got your race team and doing so well in Aussie racing cars. That makes logical sense. Very logical sense. Actually, one more question. We'll add one more. The best memory you've had in a car?
Weirdly, very weirdly, I'm going to put it down to when it was at Simmons Plains and I'd been busting for a Masters Cup trophy. And a Masters Cup trophy is an over 35 trophy. It was a couple of years ago I went down there because, we'll touch on why people were a lot quicker than others. We touched on it previously. But I was working so hard and getting no appreciation or accolades in Aussie racing cars, and it was really demoralising. So using the Masters Cup was a bit of a way of getting it. And I remember that we were in with a chance of taking one of the trophies home at Simmons Plains. And at the last race, I blew my gearbox for the weekend. So double points race. I had to finish well to do it. I'd blown the gearbox. So I'm like, bugger this. I'm going to keep circling around until I can get it. And my mechanic's working out the point system in his head. And he's like, oh, if you can kind of get this position and that position, you might be able to get it. And I'm, mate, I'm stuck in fourth gear. I'm literally just trying to get around the track without stalling. And then on the race restart after a safety car, my competitor got taken out on the main straight. So I came in and took the biscuit straight after it. And I think we finished like 14th for the weekend, but we got our Masters Cup trophy. There's about 10 people in the class. And I held that higher than my victories at Bathurst because I had been working so hard to get any accolade or any appreciation in the category and to really show how hard I worked. And then that trophy came in and I was just like, I'm just beside myself, like we've finally done it. So whilst, we hold it up there, I got to stand on a little podium and stuff like that. I was really appreciative of it. That's probably one of my favourite moments and one of my most memorable moments in the race car.
And no one can take it away from you.
No, well, they can try. They're going to smack him over the head with it. So,
yeah, rather you than me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you can have the other ones. I've got too many now. So,
yeah. Bring him my way. Bring him my way. All right, Cody. This is the reason why we got you on the podcast. You wake up one morning and you get a text, so you get to your workshop, you open things up and everything, and then you see the text saying, check your bank balance. And you think, oh, come on, is this a scam? Is this one of those scam phone calls?
Usually goes the other way, check your bank balance, you've lost money.
Exactly. But instead, you're gaining money because as soon as you check your bank balance, you discover you've got an unlimited amount of money. You've become an instant billionaire, and you think, what the hell has just happened? You then get an email from this mystery benefactor and it tells you that you can buy any car, bike, or machine that you want, but you're only allowed 3 in your dream garage. So with that in mind, what is the first car, bike, or machine you would like to have in your dream garage?
Straight off the bat, which is one car I've been dreaming about for years. It's a 911 930 Turbo in all white, Targa top, which I think would just be, 80s series model car, which I think would just be the best freaking car to roll around in. You've got yourself the classic Widowmaker in Miami drug dealing white. It's just, maybe with a black leather interior, which is probably the same combination as my 944. I can't afford a 911 930 Turbo, so I settled on the 944. That would be in a case of I would be ringing up collectors and going, I don't care where it is and what state it is. I need it in my hands right here, right now.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I interviewed Amy, she said exactly the same thing. And she wanted a 1974 model, I think it was. 1976 model 930 generation 911, and it was the RSR turbo. So and I can see why, because to me, when you look at that car, that's the classic Porsche 911 look. Yes, I know there's the early model, like the early, like late 60s, early 70s Porsches, but that to me, when you look at that, the 930 model 911, that's the classic 911.
Exactly right. And the thing I love about them so much is they're extremely raw. I'm the one that bangs on that I want the rawest experience as possible. I've driven a lot of supercars, and I used to review cars and stuff like that, and they give you the Lamborghinis and all that type of stuff. And every single time I jumped out of them, I've been extremely underwhelmed. Like,
really?
Personally, like they've lost their way in a sense where you can get your grandma into it and she can drive you down the shops, not a problem. She might scrape the front bar, but that's about it. If you've got yourself into something like that, you need to understand it's an air-cooled engine and you've got to keep going to keep it cooled down. You've got to understand how the turbo winds up. You've got to understand the suspension geometry, and you've got to understand how to use the gearbox in a certain way that they act like a pendulum on the back, so the rear end wants to kick out all the time. You've got to know how to drive it. It makes it the rawest experience as possible, which I'm a massive classic car fan when it comes down to that, because you've got to be connected with the car. It's not like, you can't connect your phone to it unless you upgrade the sound system and all that type of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm very specific in the color code and matching and everything like that. it has to be a targa top because that way you can jump out of it, without opening the doors and look like a wanker and all that type of stuff, which I'm probably scared of. I wouldn't put my shoes on the seat.
Yeah.
There's just nothing in the Porsche line. Like the Singer ranges come very close. That stands out like that.
I can actually no. As I like to remind people, Porsches give this death-defying oversteer. Oh, actually, no. Jeremy Clarkson said it once. Racing a Porsche 911, it's like giving you death-defying oversteer. It's like it's trying to kill you, which is probably what it's trying to do for you, trying to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like you're grabbing a bull by the horns and you're trying to tame it in a sense, which are, you've got to respect it. So you can't just go out and barrel down the street like you would with a normal car because the ABS and traction control will catch you in the end. But I guarantee but not everyone is a race car driver and understands real high tense situations. So whilst, supercars had to go the way of where they're going, it's you can't go any other way.
Yeah.
I just love that a classic car will give you that experience where it tries to kill you if you don't respect it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still look at it. I was talking to Amy last night and I can understand why she has a huge appreciation for it. I've had previous guests in the past mention the 911 GT3 RS. Yes, they're cool and they're beautiful and everyone loves them, but there's something classical about that 911, that 930 spec 911. It is just to die for. And I don't mean that literally. It is just, so beautiful.
Yeah, exactly right. And the GT3 RS is just a grocery getter compared to classic cars, I believe.
You're going to piss a lot of people off when you say that.
Mate, I just piss people off for fun, That's just who I am. So what are they going to do? I do love the GT3 RS as well, but if I had, the situation you told me, it wouldn't be the car I'd be buying. There's so many classic cars to buy that you've got to go down.
What about the second car?
Second car, this is one I was kind of tossing up the other day in my little own think tank. And I was kind of tossing up between a Ferrari F40 or a Ferrari Testarossa. So the Testarosa's got its own cult following, but the F40 is just same as what we go back down to. That thing rolls into a parking lot and demands respect. You kind of look at it and you don't even get kids that would run up to it and accidentally touch it. It'd be a case of, oh my God, stay the hell away from it. I actually checked how much they're worth the other day. They're about $5.5 million. So,
can I say when I was initially when I was at the Enzo Ferrari Museum in Modena, I saw one there. Oh my God, they standing still. They stand the test of time so well. The look of it still is beautiful as it was back in 1987. It is just utterly, utterly amazing. And we're approaching 80 years of Ferrari next year, which is just insane to even think of that a manufacturer like Ferrari has been going for 8 decades. It's like, it's just incredible.
It's amazing. But they stopped making good cars in about 2000. So anything, I would say they've probably got 60 years and then they shut down and they'll never have turned up again.
Don't say that.
Classic cars are the way to go.
Yeah, I know.
I cannot be convinced. What are you going to win by convincing me? I'm too stubborn.
Yeah, okay. So we're talking the F40?
Yep, F40.
Ferrari F40, yep.
Yep. And the third one was definitely a tricky one, but I kind of tossed around like, yes, we could spend hours cutting the guts out of every little spark plug gap and, wheel torque of every single car. But I decided I would want something iconic, and we go into the race car sector.
Okay.
And if you look at Nigel Mansell's Williams, from those 80s era, those turbo cars.
Oh, the Williams Honda? Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Nigel because we've both got mustaches, and I believe he's probably a bit of a similar personality in a sense of very, very raw and to the throat, and still got that English charm in him, but he's still a diehard racer in a sense. Owning one of them, sitting in your garage, just a classic Formula One car from that era is just they're just so noisy. They're achievable. Like when I say achievable, they're drivable by the average man because they didn't overcomplicate everything and all that type of stuff. You've still got your gated, shifted manual that you've got to move through as well. And the same thing, the thing just wants to kill you the whole time. So, you got to learn to respect it in that sense, is where the drivers back then were definitely, a breed of their own. They're definitely not, a driver from current day, I believe, couldn't drive one of them quick, and a driver from that day couldn't drive a current Formula One car quick. So having something like that is just, it'd be a little toy I could take to the private racetrack and wrap around every now and again.
So we're not talking about the FW14 Williams Renault. We're talking the Williams Honda from 1986-87, the FW11.
Yeah.
You know what? And I love that car because it just looks so simple, so elegant, so beautiful. It won 2 World Championships, World Constructors Championships, and delivered a World Championship to Nelson Piquet. But I was one of those people that would have loved to have seen Nigel win a World Championship in that car, but had it not been for that tyre in 86 and then he crashed at Suzuka in 87, I mean, one wonders he could have been a 3-time world champion.
Exactly. And I believe that was a time where they were starting to bring in the active suspension as well, which is just
correct.
It blows my mind that back then they had the technology for it. Like it's really bolted technology when you think about this day, because you would have to go there, program in the exact track at the exact time and know the exact braking points and all that type of stuff, because the suspension would just automatically go to where the computer thinks to go. There wasn't any GPS calibration and stuff like that with it as well. So having something like that, like, geez, you wouldn't even take it out. You'd be too scared to drive it, really, because it goes up and goes.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at the stats on the power output for that car. In race trim, 800 brake horsepower, producing around about 12,000 RPM. But then you turn up the boost in qualifying trim, and it's producing 1,200 brake horsepower at the same amount of RPM, 12,000 RPM. And that would just be on like a flick of a switch, and you'd be, holding on for dear life. But that's what you did to get the advantage back in the day. Turn up the turbo boost and go for it.
Exactly right. And you could tell back then that the races were won by straight line speed. It's, it's very common. It's motorsport. What's the first word of motorsport? It's motor.
Yep.
You've got to be focused in that way as well. And obviously the aero wasn't as developed and all that type of stuff like that. And what's the easiest way to make a car go faster? Build a quicker engine. So obviously they blow up after 3 laps. They were hugely unreliable in that sense, which became a reliability race back then.
Yeah.
But it's still something to appreciate. It's the old smack the bull on the arse and just hold on for dear life. So
yes, that's so true.
Where now you get in a car, and I can tell you our qualifying trim is our race trim is as much like every other category out there. How do you do the quickest laps per lap per race? So even V8 supercars, like they say, Bathurst 1000 isn't a reliability rally anymore. It's a sprint race, and you're just punching lap after lap after lap, and it's very rare that something blows up in them.
Yeah, exactly right. But you got to go back 40 years. I mean, 2026, 40 years since Nigel had that major tyre blow up along Brabham Straight in Adelaide, and like people still talk about it to this very day.
Yeah,
and those cars, they were very, very fragile compared to what we see now in Formula One. It's a very different era.
Exactly right. It's one thing I really, really loved back then is it was all about, you had to be an engineer to understand the cars. So you see it very commonly these days. Cars are now reliable. You put a young kid into them that's come from sim racing, and he just rails the absolute hell out of it until it blows up, which it very rarely does. Where back then you had to understand mechanical sympathy. You had to understand that if you flat shifted the box the whole race meeting, you were not going to make the end of the race meeting. What works in qualifying won't work in the race. If you were going to bounce the thing off curbs, left, right, and center, you were going to fold in the suspension. And if you over-rev the engine way too many times, there was no device in there to cut the revs and let it free spin. It just blew because you overspun the engine. So we've lost a lot of that mechanical sympathy where it's a case of you start to pit stuff against each other, if I go so hard at the start, but then I might risk it at the end and all that type of stuff. So that different error is something that I appreciate because you had to really work together to bring the reliability of the car.
I absolutely love the Dream Garage. I love the fact you've got the 930 model 911 Porsche. Love that to bits. It's still my favourite Porsche of all of them. The Ferrari F40, yes, iconic, classic. Love the F40 to bits. And the Williams Honda FW11. I mean, that is just one of the iconic cars from Formula One in the 1980s and a world champion car to boot. That's a good collection there.
I think it'd be pretty cool. I think maybe one day I'll become a multi-billionaire. Probably not likely.
Anyway, but it's good to dream, and that is a good Dream Garage there, Cody. I've absolutely enjoyed it, and it's been a great conversation to have with you, and thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy to talk to you about cars. It's been so good, and I wish you all the best in the 2026 Aussie Racing Cars season, because I think you're going to be causing quite a bit of hell on the racetracks over the 7 rounds of the 2026 season. So we wish you all the best. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you go this year.
And causing hell is exactly how I like it. No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I've had an absolute, just wonderful time just bullshitting away. It's kind of like...
It's a great way to bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. We're just sitting there and chatting shit and all that type of stuff and hopefully not getting hit. So, no, I really appreciate it, mate. And thank you very much for having me on the pod.
There's no question that Cody enjoys his passion of motoring and motorsport. To make a career out of those passions is all the more impressive, and just listening to him talk about it and the stories that have made him who he is left me not only in fits of laughter but also in awe of how a kid from Newcastle made it onto the biggest draw card of Australian motorsport. And his Dream Garage is iconic in every sense of the word. Classic Porsche performance with the 930 model 911, Italian supercar supremacy with the Ferrari F40, and the epitome of 1980s Formula One turbo engineering brilliance with the Williams Honda FW11. Well chosen, Cody. My profound thanks for Cody for giving up his time in his busy schedule to chat with me, and an extended thanks to Megan Coleman for facilitating the interview. You can follow Cody, Anton Hodgson and the efforts of Chicane Motorsports throughout the 7-round Battery World Aussie Racing Car Super Series supporting the Repco Supercars Championship on Fox Sports 506, KO Sports and on the 7 Network. And be sure to check out the team website at chicanemotorsports.com.au and follow both Cody and the team on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. We've put the links up in the show notes as well as the Motor Dream podcast website. The address to visit the show website is themotordream.com.au, where you can listen to past episodes, find more information on each of our guests, and also on the show itself. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram with the handle The Motor Dream, and you can start a conversation about your Dream Garage by using the hashtag The Motor Dream. Or drop us a line on what your Dream Garage would be, or leave us some feedback on the show itself. Our email is themotordream@beastproductions.com.au. Lastly, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and now you can find us on the Podbean and iHeartRadio apps. Thanks for listening, and remember to drive or ride safely out on the roads wherever you go. We'll be back for another episode in a couple of weeks' time, where my guest is MotoGP commentator, podcaster and content creator, Renita Vermeulen. Until then, we'll see you next time on the Motor Dream Podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Motor Dream Podcast. This series is proudly produced by Beast Productions.